Hello, class. Did you know that 40% of Americans don't vote in the general election and 60% don't vote in midterms? It is very important that we get more Americans out voting in general elections for their personal enrichment, for their community's enrichment, and for society as a general's enrichment. And I want to talk to you today about the benefits of voting and what they are in terms of, you know, influencing your government, uh, defeating polarization, impacting your community, personal growth, helping pass those traits on to your children, and how it helps combat polarization. First, I want to talk to you about um, the influence voting has on government itself as a whole. Voting is an effective tool of influencing government, and communities that vote tend to get what they want out of politicians. Because politicians really want to make sure that they're getting reelected. And if you're a community that votes, you're considered a priority because you're what's keeping them in office or keeping them out of office. And if they take care of your needs, they're more likely to get into office. Vice versa, communities that don't vote, they don't care as much. Less resources get sent to communities that don't vote. And less focus gets put on those communities because they're not there for the politicians. So they don't really care about them. Meanwhile, if you're in a community that votes a lot, you're priority number one. And your vote as an individual really does matter. There have been 5 elections in the U.S. in its history that have been decided by a single vote. So the argument that, oh, it's 1 in thousands, it doesn't matter, is not true. There have been many elections decided by one vote. There have been even more elections decided by just a couple thousand votes. And this is all according to Public Civics, Online Civics page for sort of helping explain the benefits of voting. Voting doesn't just give your community more focus from government. It also creates more community engagement, and we're going to talk about that next here. According to Benefits of Voting, a nonprofit website set up in 2005, voting helps create stronger communities with better nonprofits and more community engagement and more awareness, and just a generally greater sense of community among citizens. And what I mean by that is when people vote, they're generally well read on the issues. They understand what's going on in their community. They understand what they need. And they often will become more engaged in their community to seek out methods of fixing things other than the government. Say, like a nonprofit, they'll donate to a charity, they'll volunteer, they'll get engaged and involved because if you're well read and you vote, you care about the issue. So, if I'm very well read about homelessness, I might just go to a shelter or something like that, donate to a shelter, go work at a food bank. Something that I will do something that I believe might fix it or help it. And this gives a community more resources to work with when they're dealing with issues that the government might not be able to supply. Or at least that will work in conjunction with what the government can give them. And that's a big problem solving. That's huge for the problem solving ability for the problem solving function of a community, to just have those resources. Voting isn't just important for its direct benefits for the community and things like that. It's important. Sorry, I meant to say indirect benefits. It's important for its direct benefits as well, on an impact on a election, because your vote really does matter, and we're going to talk about that next. So, according to Khaled Ansama, on the Sidelines of Democracy from NPR. Uh, many American non-voters seem to believe that the system's corrupt, and so they're just not going to vote. And that's fine, because it's the same result either way. The system's corrupt, you know. For like I said, 40% of us don't vote in the general election. 60% of us don't vote in midterms, and the most common reason for that is because we believe it's corrupt. Now, among youth and minorities, we have the youth, minorities, and the poor. We have the lowest voting rates, and the youth have a slightly different reason for not voting. It's usually more of a apathy. 74% say it's apathy or lack of knowledge. And the people that vote the most are white, rich individuals. They're most likely to become a regular voter, as opposed to minority, as opposed to low income, as opposed to youth. White, rich, most likely to vote. And voting may help develop certain life skills, actually, that would otherwise go unused. And so we're going to talk about that next. Personal development. Voting is huge for personal development. Mr. John Stewart, in his book Considerations on the Representative Government, once was quoted to say that he didn't believe a society could properly function without civic engagement, without voting. It develops critical thinking, and it's, in his words, necessary for a high-functioning society, because without it, we become very degraded. We are not thinking for ourselves. We are not running things ourselves. Government says, hey, you do this. Hey, we're going to run things this way. And we're just, okay. Which doesn't inspire thinking about how to solve issues yourself, thinking about bigger picture type stuff. It leaves you completely underdeveloped in that area. And almost most importantly, voting is not just for adults. It's not just something that we do to make our world better. It's for the kids. The reason why voting is important from a parenting aspect is if you vote as a parent, it's a habit. It's a habit you teach to your child. And it's important that you do it because according to the book Voter Turnout and the Dynamics of Voter Competition in Established Democracies by Mark N. Franklin, voting's a habit. And if your parent votes, the child will vote. And if the child votes even just a couple times, they're more likely to continue to be a regular voter throughout their lifetime. Because voting is very much so like a habit. It's something that we just get used to. And if you're a parent who teaches your kid the importance of voting and you push them to vote early, that's going to work out very well for them. They're going to take to it. Greater voter turnout may actually be a solution to political polarization, which we're going to talk about here next. Polarization is when you have two opposing sides of government and they can't agree on anything. And so there's no middle ground. You have right and left. And there's no real progress in that sort of a situation. It discourages a lot of voters. A lot of more moderate voters who just see, wow, I really can't win because the two sides are way out here. And getting more voters in would really help fix this because most voters right now are either here or they're here. But most people who don't vote right now don't have extreme point of views. They have very moderate point of views. They don't care too much. And what that means is we can get voters who are more in the middle section, which means politicians have to play more to them. They have to play to this 40 to 60% of us who are, we don't really have an extreme stance. We have a more American idealistic stance, and we're somewhere here in the middle, which means politicians can stop polarizing and they can start cooperating a little bit better. They can start meeting somewhere in this area. And this is all, I know I should have probably said this at the beginning. This is all according to John Rogowski in his book, Increased Polarization of Politics. Sorry, I said book, I meant website. But John Rogowski, Increased Polarization of Politics Reduces Voter Turnout. So basically he's saying they walk hand in hand. So, this would effectively lead to a more cooperative government because we get more people involved who are not extremists, is the theory. So in conclusion, there's really no reason to not vote in an American election. It helps solve polarization, which has been dogging our political system for years. It has been slowing down government. It has been making things way more extreme and less cooperative. It's good for personal growth. It's good for your kids. Your kids will become voters, lifelong voters, if you teach them early. It's great for a community. It helps nonprofits. It helps you influence and change government. It is great for the voter. Voting is a good idea, and there's absolutely no reason why anyone should ever not do it. Thank you.